What's up and welcome to Ahead of the Curve. This is your host, Jonathan Gellner, and thank you so much for joining us today. This podcast is powered by Stick and Ball TV, the baseball and softball streaming platform. Stick and Ball TV is a baseball-focused streaming platform featuring the best coaches, players, and premium brands in baseball today. Stick and Ball TV creates and curates baseball training content, on-brand partner content, and original lifestyle content, and publishes globally across their web, iOS, and Android platforms. Check them out at stickandball.tv or on the Stick and Ball TV mobile app. Today we have on Tim Held, head baseball coach at Moeller High School, 15th as the Varsity Head Baseball Coach, and his 26th at Moeller High School. In his first 14 seasons, the Crusaders made 7 trips to the state Final Four, including the 2009, 12, 13, and 15 state championships. Coach Held is an 8-time GCL Coach of the Year, 3-time City Coach of the Year, the 2009 Bob Sumerel Greater Cincinnati Coach of the Year, the 2010 State Coach of the Year, 5-time Defiance College Alumni Coach of the Year, the 2013 Cincinnati Reds and MSA Sport Coach of the Year, and the 2015 NFHS Coach of the Year for the state of Ohio. So on the show, we discuss the tradition and culture at Moeller, which includes Hall of Famers Barry Larkin and Ken Griffey Jr., and we take a ton of time on how to conduct in-season, basically everything, which includes video, in-dugout conversations, practices, and much more. Here is Tim Held. Tim, good morning. Welcome to the show.
Hey, thanks for having me.
Absolutely. Well, we were just discussing that I had the privilege of having your cousin Tom on the podcast, what seems like maybe a couple of years ago now. Great guy. And I've been looking forward to having a conversation with you as well. Obviously, baseball runs in the family, I guess. And and you're at Moeller High School. So I would love to hear tell us a little bit about what Moeller is about, because I know you guys have an awesome, rich tradition. We were, just chatting about some of the alums that you guys have. And let's just go ahead and start with that, because I think that would be an awesome place just to begin the conversation.
So Moeller High School was founded in about 1960, so fairly young, and was put on the map really with Moeller football, and Jerry Faust is really kind of where it went national. But the first team state championship was in baseball in 1972. So our baseball alums are very proud of that. But when Jerry Faust made that jump from Moeller to Notre Dame, and he was playing a national schedule, and football really put the school on the map. And baseball wise, the school's got over 1,000 wins, and that there are probably 1,100 wins now in the 62 years. 8 state championships, 2 Hall of Famers and Ken Griffey Jr. and Barry Larkin, and 14 major leaguers have come through Moeller.
Oh, that's wonderful. And so you mentioned that you were an assistant before you took over. And usually my first question is, what is the vision that you had for the program? But you got the opportunity to be an assistant and probably get to take what you really liked already that you guys already did, and then get to merge it with what you were, what you're wanting to do as an assistant. I think we as assistants would always do things a little bit different just based on our personality type. But tell us a little bit about what that transition was like. And was it hard being an assistant and then being the head coach with the same players that you had previously?
A little different. What the good part was, when I got hired at Moeller, and I was 23 years old. I was from Northwest Ohio, so moving to the big city of Cincinnati, and luckily one of my high school classmates and teammates already had a job in Cincinnati, so I had an apartment and everything. So I really didn't know, all that went into Moeller. So it was really good that I got hired, was teaching math there, and was a freshman assistant. So I got to do 3 years as a freshman assistant, and then a JV assistant left, and I moved up and I was a JV assistant for 2 years, and then somebody else left, a long-time varsity assistant left, and so I was then a varsity assistant for 6 years. So I got to spend all this time learning about each level, which has now been, invaluable once I became the head coach. And then working with Mike Cameron, who was the head coach for 39 years at Moeller, leading the baseball program. And he's coached guys like Larkin and Griffey and Buddy Bell and all of his sons. And, the list is incredible of the guys that he's coached. So being the assistant under him, and then he was great, knowing that he was getting towards the end of his career, of giving me and the other assistants a lot of responsibility and really including us in a lot of decisions. So it made the transition pretty seamless. And then becoming the head coach, I think probably the biggest thing I noticed was little different interactions with the parents. When I was the assistant, they would come and ask a lot of questions, and now that I was the head coach, that changed. So they thought, I guess, as the assistant, I was just there to help drive the bus or something, and wasn't the reason that their son was playing or wasn't batting in a spot in the lineup. That only the head coach made that. So Coach Cam's was awesome, and really helped me in my career get it going and how to run a program and all that. And then once I became the head coach, just tried to keep pushing forward and like you said, instituting some new things that I wanted to do from attending the clinics and everything, and that I wanted to throw into the program.
No, I really like that. And, one of the things that I think is an interesting question too is, the first 100 days on the job, they talk about, with the president and with any job, it's, you have to go in and you have to really set the tone, I think. And you can overcome, some minor things that may not go well, I think, but you want to go in and you want to have everything laid out, but that's something that's not talked about enough, and so when you transitioned, excuse me, from the assistant to the head job, so I'm assuming it was probably over the summer, and then you started this fall. So tell us about what that first couple of months was like, because again, these players are seeing you from more, I don't want to say buddy role, but it's more of a step back. Now I have to see the whole program rather than being next to the players all of the time. Now we have a whole program to take care of, and it's a different relationship whenever you're making out the lineup versus whenever you're trying to push guys to get in it or to continue to push guys to get a little bit better, which I'm sure you still do, but it's a different relationship. Right. But tell us a little bit about what those first couple of months were like. I know it was a few years ago, but right. What do you remember about that time? And are there things that you feel like you did well that you could share with us, or it may be anything that you didn't do well that you would wish that you would share with us that we could improve upon, or I guess learn from those moments?
Yeah, I got really lucky in that most of the assistants stayed. Oh, so nice. You had some really good, continuity on the lower levels. Like the two JV coaches came and were my assistants and filled those spots. So we had, like I said, really good, and we've always had a good mix of Moeller baseball alums on staff, which, makes things easier when they understand the whole school and the baseball program. But yes, it was in the summer. So trying to fill the staff, summer baseball in Cincinnati, the kids all go and play for different club teams. So you don't have a lot of interaction with them. So it wasn't like I needed to get a staff and make really quick decisions because we had to start coaching them in the summer. I really wasn't going to be able to do anything with them until the fall. So I had time there. And one of the things I do remember is my wife was pregnant with our second son. So, luckily he was born in the fall and not in the middle of that first spring. So I had a little bit, able to take some time away there to help out her. But, going through and trying to then institute, make our strength program, some different things I wanted to do, some of our off-season hitting and throwing that we were allowed to do inside our rules. But I really didn't have to change a lot of things. I think I brought in some more, like wanted to push it with more tech and some of those things that Coach Cameron, wasn't comfortable at that time of bringing in.
Oh, very cool. Well, let's talk a little bit, about some of the things that you guys are doing. What does your off season look like, and kind of walk us through? I know the weather is up north is a little bit harsher than it is down here, but tell us, about your time restrictions, what you guys are doing in the fall, what training you guys trying to get in and how much time you've got. And if you don't mind, just walk us through that a little bit.
Sure. In the summer up here, we're allowed to spend 10 days with our kids, fully coaching them so I could have the whole program out. But once I have a seventh person out, that counts as a day. So as long as I stay 6 or under, I can provide what's like individual instruction, like kind of the college model. But 7 or more counts as a coaching day. So we got to be pretty strategic in the summer of when we want to open our facilities and make sure we're going to get a lot of guys there to take advantage of those 10 days. August is a dead month. We're not allowed to do anything with our guys except they can go to the weight room with the strength coach. And then starting in September, we a lot of the guys are in fall baseball or fall sports, so we take it pretty easy on them. Don't throw a lot of baseball stuff at them. I open the cages a little bit here and there when I know they want to get in before weight room. And then really in the end of October is when fall sports are kind of wrapping up. That's when we really ramp up our baseball activities and make sure they're in the weight room 3 days a week. Make sure each team is hitting 1 to 2 days a week. And then really getting focused on our individual instruction and really structuring it from getting catchers time when the weather's good and they can be out back where we have a turf soccer field and a turf football field to a lot of hitting instruction and things that we want to put in. And then that runs through in Ohio, we start practice, official tryouts and practice this year was on February 21st. So we do all of that from end of October through February 21st. And then it's a sprint. It's 6 days a week and 7 weeks of games.
So how long after February did you say February the 22nd to the start of the season?
Yesterday, the March 26th was our official start day of the season. Okay. In Ohio, nearly everybody canceled here because the wind chill was 27 degrees.
Yeah.
So there was a lot of cancellations. And we were really lucky yesterday. We opened a brand new baseball field. Moeller's never had its own field. We've always been renting from public parks or had good relationships with different townships to use their fields over the years. And we finally opened a brand new all-turf facility. So our game was canceled, but we still had the dedication and ceremony and had all the donors out, the families out, and it was an awesome celebration.
No doubt. So you've got a month to really the 6 days a week, that is a sprint. And so you've got this month that you feel like you have to get everything in, which I don't know how Northern coaches do it. You guys are much better coaches than I am. And that is 100% truth because you've got, you're probably not out on a field all that time either. So it's condensed down to a gym or, an indoor. And so like, I don't know. It blows me away how you guys get teams ready in that small period of time. But, what does the preseason look like? So whenever you start, let's say that you started yesterday, you had a month. What would you need to accomplish within that month to feel like, okay, I feel pretty good about where we're at? We're still going to add layers onto it, but I'm sure getting pitchers ready is a big one. But what do you feel like within that month that you need to accomplish to be able to, to get your guys ready to go?
I mean, every day, like facilities wise, like since we've never had a field, like we're, very drill oriented. Prior to 2008, we never really were outside until they turfed the football field and soccer field. They were never ready when they were natural grass before, early April. So we were in like a 100 by 100, what we call our activity center. A couple like tennis court size. That's where we did all of our work. So in 2008, being able to be out on this turf soccer field and football field, we felt very fortunate. But just kind of, with 3 teams that we're trying to juggle, we get 75 minutes outside and 75 minutes in our cages. That's how we set it up. So we're just going through of, okay, we got 10 to 15 minutes of base running. What do we need to accomplish today? So when we go into game number 1, that we have covered every single thing from every base and multiple base runners. And how can we do that when we're not actually on a field? And make these drills better, to a team defense, to a skills. And then over the years, what's really helped is, facilities like the University of Cincinnati or Prasco Park out in Mason, who have put in turf fields, of being able to let us rent them so that I can at least take the varsity down there so we can do pop fly communication. We can work double cuts on a real field. Because, trying to do those on a soccer field with no fence and we're throwing them and they're rolling under this net or that net, or, I got a guy trying to dig it out of a lacrosse net because we threw it just perfect. It's been some crazy situations.
I imagine.
Yeah. So now the last 2 years, knowing this field was going to be built made me a little nervous because I have to totally kind of restructure how we practice. And because 25 years, I've never practiced on a baseball field on a regular basis.
Sure. Yeah. I can feel all of the Northern head coaches nodding with you right now going, yep, yeah. I completely understand and empathize with that.
Yeah.
No, I love that. And it's really interesting, when you get coaches from different parts of the country, how they structure practices and I love it. And I think that's awesome. But so tell us a little bit about, how do you conduct practice in season? So here we can play, like I was talking to a coach yesterday and they had a district game rained out last week. So they're going to play Monday through Saturday. And whenever I was a coach in Texas, I think the max that we could play every week was 3 games. So you'd play like Tuesday, Friday, and then you'd have a game Saturday every now and then. So you'd play basically 2 games a week for most of the year. So let's start with, how many games can you guys play a week? And then how do you use, the off days that you get? And, how do you utilize those effectively? And what do you try to accomplish, and just kind of walk us through, especially for, new head coaches that are listening to this time of the year. This is their first year. What's the best way to conduct practice in season?
Gotcha. In Ohio, we're allowed to play 27 games in our regular season. So until about maybe 3 years ago or so, our regular season was 6 weeks long. And then the tournament would start. So you had a 6-week regular season, and the tournament, if you went from week 1 through the state championship, it was 4 weeks. So it was almost as long, and you'd only play a max of 8 games in those 4 weeks to win a state championship. So 27 in 6 weeks, and then 8 games over 4 weeks. And then to help with pitch count rules and stipulations that the state put in, we added a 7th week to our regular season. So that's kind of helped spread things out. But in Ohio, with our weather, there would be weeks where it would rain and you'd be rained out for 3-4 straight days. And so your next week, you'd have 6 games in 6 days, or loaded up that way. And I remember it's like 2010 or 11. I think we were rained out like 10 straight days. Where just the fields had no time to dry out. So you're trying to balance league games and get those in, and everybody's bouncing people around. So, I mean, it's just crazy. So now I think a lot more turfs coming in, so it'll help, everybody around here. But really, really tough. So to your question, when we do have good weather, we're probably playing now about 4 games a week is how I try and balance it. So we can have a day off in there as far as going to practice. And then, unfortunately, it's a lot of what hasn't gone well in the last, 4 games that we need to touch up on. But we try and spend time on our bunt defense all the time in the preseason, touching on that 1 to 2 days a week, whether it's controlled or a live bunt situation to our first, third situations. So when we are in season, and I know we have that day that we're going to practice, and, like I said, it used to be on campus. We make sure we got, always checking in with the guys, infielders, outfielders. How are your arms? How much throwing are you comfortable doing today? Or they're asking, how much throwing are we doing today? We want to take a ton of ground balls, but we're going to do some piece of team defense, touch on something, whether that's a short 15 minutes, to just make sure, hey, we want to add this piece offensively to our bunts. We want to watch out when this team coming up loves to bunt in these situations. So we don't do very much all year on kind of scouting report type stuff. It's more taking care of ourselves.
Sure.
And then we're ready for those situations. And then because then we transition, and when we're on campus and we hit inside separate in a 4-cage setup we have, then it's the same thing up there, a lot of maintenance stuff, and kind of trying to individualize as much as we can. If we've noticed something with a guy's swing, and I got a good crew of young guys that are trying to take as much video as they can at our games and put that on Huddle so the kids can watch it, coaches can check on it. So doing that and trying to just get a maintenance piece, but also trying to develop guys who are younger and not in the lineup every day, so that next year we're rolling right along.
Sure. Well, let's unpack a few of those things. You mentioned Huddle. I would love to hear how you're utilizing that. I know it's mostly a football program, but tell us how you've used it for baseball.
So I found a young guy, about 25 years old, that put something out on Twitter a couple years ago that I was looking for a director of analytics and video. And, I thought I was hoping to get like 2 people interested, and got about 15. So I had to start going through and finding out baseball backgrounds and all of that. So found this young guy, Ian Bach, and Ian had dabbled with it, helps been in the Reds and Astros organization, helping them do some things. And so Ian came to us, and he's just running with it. So he'll mount a camera in center. It's not a very expensive camera. And the first day I saw him breaking down the video in the office, I thought he was watching MLB TV. And then awesome. I stopped, and it was our game. So this little $250 camera from 400 feet away has just incredible power. So trying to shoot from center to see the pitcher, catcher, hitter, to be able to break things down there. And then depending on each field setup, he'll try and set up on a side so we can see the open side of the hitter, so we can see some mechanical things, and go from there. So it's a lot when you're playing 4 games a week. He does an incredible job. I know the kids are checking in. I would love to say I watch every single game and every swing, but I know that my coaches are checking in, and it's good. The kids can text me and say, hey, can you look at this? And we can look at his swing 3 weeks ago to what it is now. So it's pretty good. And then we found some students in the school who are interested. So they help break down that video and kind of tag it all, who the hitter is, the result. And it really helps to speed the process up for the coaches and the players.
That was my next question. So we do like Google Drive, and we'll do it by inning, but we were looking into some different programs for just trying to be able to go back and find and basically tag some different situations. So Huddle will do that, and that might be a game changer for someone listening. I know that's something that I'll be interested in looking at. So you can go through and you can tag different things.
Yeah, you can. It is set up for it's much better for football, basketball, with those setups, but it is easy, pretty easy to change all the column headings, so that you can put all that in: pitcher, hitter, the result, and you can get pretty detailed. I know you've talked to Tom Marker. He does a really good job, so I usually bounce questions off of him. He has somebody that tags every defensive rep and puts it into the kid's folder. So when the kid goes into his folder, he sees his offense, his defense. That we are not that detailed. So it's just each game, and then the player can go through, find his at bats, and check those out real quick. Or the pitcher can watch his whole inning as he's throwing.
No, I love that, and I'm going to have to text Tom about that and see how they're doing that stuff, because that's really neat as well. But one of the other things that I think is really crucial, especially for new head coaches, if I took a head coaching role and trying to figure out what's my process during games. You guys said that you've played 4 games a week, and I know that the few times that I've been, a head coach of summer teams, you feel like you're getting caught up in the moment while you need to be thinking several, at least batters ahead. And I would love to hear, you've been the head coach for 15 years. What is your system or your process that you have in games? Like, how do you stay ahead of the game that's going on without getting caught up in it? And, how do you make sure that you're getting everything, and what things are you looking to get done in a game, or things that you're trying to notice? And it's good to have good assistance for different things like that. but I'd love to hear just what your process is during a game to make sure that you feel like you're giving your team the best chance to win.
In game, probably, since we just kicked off our season, it's a lot of text flying between our coaches, like, okay, here's our lineup. Here's what we think is our core lineup. And then, talking about, okay, what defensive replacements do we need to make in the fifth and sixth? Who are our top, pinch hitters, pinch runners? Starting to think about those things, because, sometimes early in the season, I'll catch myself, I'm out coaching third and it's fifth inning and a guy gets on and all of a sudden I'm like, I need a pinch runner. So I need to be sending this stuff and have the coaches thinking that way too. So that we kind of have those thoughts so they can yell out at me like, hey, you want a runner here, and we know who we're sending. And especially if he's a pitcher also, we got to make sure that we've included the pitching coach, so we're not all of a sudden send a guy out to first and we burnt one of the relief arms as a pinch runner. So really making sure we talk through those things ahead of time, days ahead of time, and into the week, until you kind of get those roles developed a couple weeks into the season. Then it just all comes natural, and you look in the dugout and the guy knows he's already got a helmet in his hand because he knows he's going to get called on in the fifth inning if this guy gets a base hit. So really kind of being ahead of that way, and then the assistants who are in the dugout all the time, being on the same page. But keeping it kind of a basic, keeping a tendency chart on the other pitcher, so that the guy in the hole and, fourth is checking those things as he heads out to the on-deck circle. Are we seeing any patterns? We kind of want to know who's calling the game. Is it the catcher, or is it coming from the coach into the catcher? So it's just, knowing if they're getting into those kind of patterns. Because I think, catchers that are calling their own games will get into more of those patterns than a coach will, who's been doing it a number of years. He'll change things up. So we want to kind of know that.
Sure.
I love stealing bases. So we're always on, pitcher delivery times, talking moves, catcher pop times. We are getting on those all the time. So our kids are in tune. So they know what's a really comfortable time for them to steal, and when they got to be a little bit more, make a better read and run it on curveball counts, if they fall into that kind of secondary speed category.
I really like that a lot. So, when you mentioned base running, I think, it's kind of like the special teams of baseball. How do you get guys to get over the fear of being thrown out? And, is it something that you practice a lot? And I know I'm pretty familiar with Matt Tallarico's stuff, and his biggest thing is you just got to get over the fear of, of being thrown out, and you can't like explode on them if there's ever a learning opportunity that they do get thrown at in a bad situation. Because most kids want to be aggressive, but we kind of take that out of them to an extent. But I'd love to hear, how you mentioned that you're huge on it. So tell us a little bit about, your teaching model and how you go about, teaching how to be good base runners. I'd love to hear.
Yeah. First, I'm blessed with some pretty good athletes and a lot of speed. So that helps. Yeah, maybe it makes it a lot easier. So we're just constantly talking to them, and about taking those leads and and we're going to time them a few different times during the year from, get their lead, stop them at 12 feet, and run straight through second base and find out, can they get there in 3-4, 3-5, 3-6, and then just, teaching them about that pitcher delivery time and the catcher pop time, that if those numbers are close to their time running straight through second base, that they can get there in a game, because you also got the tag, and it's got to be a good throw and all of those parts. And the pop time, I believe the pop time that we see between innings or before a game is going to be faster than in game, because there's not a hitter in the box between innings. They're not worried about blocking a pitch or anything, because it's usually a great throw. On that last one, they're sending down to second. So I think that, teaching the kids that piece of it, that you do have a little bit of a buffer, and the first base coach is constantly communicating those times until we settle in. And then, like you said, like they get thrown out, if you blow up on them, then they're not going to run again. So just being patient with them, understand that there's going to be one or two guys on your team that it's going to take longer for them to understand a good situation and a bad situation, and when's a good time to run and when it's not. And so just make sure you're communicating with them and teaching them, and then also talking to the whole team about that. But getting them to understand, like, if you're afraid to get thrown out, then you're not going to be a good base stealer. So, I think we're over 90% every year, and stealing, and we've probably been averaging 30, 31 games with tournament runs, and stealing, 100 and 120 bases a year. So pretty high success rate. 2015, we stole 150 bases in 34 games. So just, and then getting them to know, like, hey, if you run and you show aggressiveness, it's generating more fastballs for our offense.
Sure.
Because the catcher, especially when the catcher's calling it, he wants fastballs, so he's got more time to try and throw you out. So it helps our hitters out as well. So there's about 3 years ago, I think we were about started the year out like 9-6, and we just couldn't get going and get on a good run. And I started looking at our numbers, and through those 15 games, we'd only stolen like 26 bases and only ran maybe 32 times. So we just sat down, had a talk, said, we got to run more. We got to get going. And all of a sudden we started, getting 4 bags a game, this one 5, 6, and then, 3. And as those numbers shot up over, the record on the flip side was incredible. We went like, 11-4 over the rest, and our batting average went up and runs scored went up. And just believe we got to get as many guys to second base as we can, whether that's dirt ball reads, stealing bases, whatever. A guy bobbles one in the outfield, we got to get to second base.
Sure. No, that makes a ton of sense. And you mentioned that you guys, you have a sprint for the first 27 games, and then you've got more time during playoffs. So what do you feel like, gets you guys ready? I noticed that you guys have been to the Final Four several different times. What do you feel like would using that month and then the extra practices that you've got, what do you feel like you need to do for, and it probably depends on the group too, but what do you feel like needs to happen within, those first couple of weeks to really get ready for the postseason and to make a deep run? Try and get into like a weekly pattern. It seems like a lot of times the games aren't until the end of the week. So you play that last regular season game on a Saturday, and then you don't play till like Thursday or Friday. So try and get on, again, when we didn't have a field, we would try and get on a field, to practice. And then as the week went on, we would be a lot of developmental stuff, because kind of all the drills and technique stuff got pushed to the side when you're in the middle of that season. So try and go back and revisit that from, close quarter work with the infielders, it's work on our double play footwork, really going back to those basics. And then as the week amped up, got closer to the game to making sure we're good on, again, all our bunt coverages, all of those things. And then we're ready to attack that game. Oh, that's great. So with that, I would love to hear, I've got a couple of quick hitters for you, and then I'd like to get into some culture stuff. But inevitably, I think there's always, a drill or some different practice things that we do that our players really like, and to get them loosened up, or different competitions. So are there any drills that your players love, or different competitions that we could steal from you?
Oh, yeah, you're right. Anytime you get them to compete, man, it changes things. So the monotony of we were trapped inside with some bad weather a couple, 3-4 weeks ago during practice, and last week as well. So, I just went upstairs one day, and, we have a hack attack. We have another, we have the sports tutor home plate machine that can randomize pitches. We have those things, and have hit tracks. So we just made 3 competitions, a bunting and hit and run, and had a coach charting things. So are they executing to playing the quality hit game on the hit tracks. So just, trying to find a way that, as I'm a math guy, and so I like things to be going in order, this, how we go through our week and everything. So for me, it's kind of out of my comfort level to change things like that, but knowing they need to do something different, and just totally changes up how that schedule goes. So trying to create those competitions upstairs, when we're in our cage time, when we're trapped inside, has been really good. Trying to spread that, to the JV and freshman coaches as well. So they're mixing things up. Outside, the clinic, the ABCA was awesome this year to give me some new stuff to do, for on-field BP to make it more game-like. And it ends, and I'm always asking the coaches and players, how was it? And they're like, that new one that we did, that was awesome. With the base runners and playing, whatever.
Sure.
It was a guy from Rio Grande Valley, playing every sixth one live. The kids love throwing the ball across the infield, playing all the ground balls during the round, and then having the live situations and a catcher in there calling out plays. Really helped us, speed up and get more game-like out of our BP.
Well, that's really cool. Well, let's talk a little, you mentioned the different levels of coaches that you've got. So I would love to hear, from a program perspective, how do you make sure those guys, I was, like you even mentioned, you were a freshman coach or a JV coach. I was the same thing whenever we both first started. So how do you feel like you try to help them, feel like they're communicated with, and part of the, sometimes you feel like you're on an island as a freshman or JV coach. How do you feel like they're to make them part of the, part of the whole program? And how do you develop those guys? Because, eventually you went from freshman coach to now the head coach there. How do you, help develop them into the role that they want to eventually, if they want to be head coaches? How do you help develop them in that way?
Well, my freshman head coach, this is his 32nd year as the freshman head coach.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So awesome. You don't get much more lucky than that. So,
sure.
He gives them, Coach Ron Roth gives them a great base, as to what they need to do for Moeller baseball. We keep big rosters on every level. So he does a great job of getting them all some time, and making sure is Moeller baseball like what they want to continue with, and are they willing to put in the time to try and be that varsity guy they see all the time our older guys spend in the weight room. So he gives them a great base, and Eric Schmidt, who's a 2007 Moeller grad, is with him, and Eric teaches in the building. So those guys are kind of tag teaming as co-head coaches of the freshmen. So when you have a veteran like Coach Roth, I know I was an assistant under him, when I started. So it was awesome to have to know what he's thinking and what he wants to do. And then my JV coaches, the head JV coach was a head coach at a number of other high schools, and then jumped on board with me. So to have his experience and knowledge, I really don't have to worry about them. We spend a lot of time with the freshmen and JVs, coaches and players through our off season, through the weight room and strength and conditioning. So get a really good feel there, and just try and include them in all our conversations. And then we really don't separate until that February 21st. And then it's kind of, we're all in changing after school to get ready for practice. And then we see each other at the end of practice, because we're all kind of going different ways in different facilities. So trying to touch base with them as much as possible on what they need and what their players are doing. And in case we need to start shuffling guys because of a need or an injury or something.
For sure. And, I think one of the things that is really important, it definitely helps to have a guy that's been there longer than you, but just creating an excitement and, especially with the tradition that you guys have, I'm sure that is super helpful. Seeing, two Hall of Famers every single day is really, really exciting. But tell us a little bit about, just the culture that you're trying to build, how you trickle that all the way down, and then, what does being a Moeller baseball player, look like, feel like? How give us some insight into what's really important and things that you hold really tightly to the program.
A good question. I think it helps tremendously because I'm a teacher in the building, and the guys have seen me come up through the different levels. Now that, the group now only knows me as the head coach. And what was really awesome that I didn't throw in there before is that Coach Cameron, who was the head coach before me, took 1 year off, and then he came back and he's been helping me with the freshman and JV programs until COVID, and then he stepped aside. So you have the head coach of 39 years come back and he's coaching your JV and freshman, then you're really comfortable with the guys that you're getting.
Sure, that's cool.
So it's really awesome. So being in the building, with our culture, Coach Cameron was one that he had a number of rules. And so what I found, and our basketball coach, who's a legend in Ohio as well, Carl Kramer, I coached basketball for 5 years under him, and he didn't have many rules. It was, we're going to do what's right, and we're going to do what's right all the time. And so one of the things I changed pretty early is I did not put out a list of rules, so that we weren't constantly going, oh, you didn't do this piece, you didn't do that. And because if the kids see you're not going to enforce every single one of those rules, they're going to ask you why you chose to enforce the ones you did. So kind of threw all the rules out, and I really don't put many out there other than we're going to do the best all the time. We're going to touch every line. We're going to hold you accountable. And all the coaches are on board with that. And, trying to get then the older kids to understand, if you do it, the younger guys see that. And then this thing just feeds itself. And they take care of all those issues, which are always pretty minor. But, you're dealing with high school boys. So there's going to be some that test you, and you got to be ready in any of those situations. But I get pretty lucky as far as the competition is so pretty fierce at Moeller inside the baseball program, that they're pretty good about towing that line and being on time and being accountable, working hard every single day, because the guys who don't, end up weeding themselves out by the time they are juniors. They don't even end up, trying out for the varsity.
No doubt. Really good. So so you go from, I would like to hear how that transition was. So you go from a guy that, everything is cut and dry. Were there any moments that you had that you can think back and go, okay, we had this standard, or we had this rule, and it wasn't upheld, or maybe some different examples of how they police themselves and the different conversations behind that? Because I think, with a lot of coaches, we have different things that we value and that we hold true, standards, rules, whichever you prefer. But I would like to hear, we're in the business of changing behavior, and if they have something that they're not doing that we want them to do, we have to change their behavior to get them to align with how we expect them to act. So I would like to hear, what are some different examples of behavior change and how you get players to, get on the same boat, or like you even mentioned, getting off of it before their junior year. Mm-hmm. But how do you, are there any examples of some different players that are maybe harder to get going in the right direction, and you want to give them a ton of credit and some different opportunities, but they may have been a little bit harder than other ones to do that, and maybe a success story or any and all of that? I know I'm just kind of throwing a ton of stuff at you, but right. Examples are always super helpful whenever you're dealing with situations like that.
Yeah, I mean, I believe, and I don't know if the kids would agree with this, I believe I have a pretty long fuse, but when it goes, it goes. So we all have, wherever our snapping point is. So, I usually start out pretty patient in the fall and the winter, but the way things are going with summer baseball these days in Ohio, like the club level, that when we play our last game, they're gone. And some of these guys are playing on national level teams, and they're not even in Cincinnati more than 5 days in the month of June. They're all over the place. So, and they're playing with teams from different states. They're not even playing with teams from Ohio anymore. So they kind of get, my sense is they have a feeling that they're out. How do I make myself better? And so at Moeller, very much, school ball, like we are what's best for the team. So trying to get them to make that transition of, using the summer and the fall as your individual development to make our team better.
Sure. Yeah.
So you'll have some that'll come in and occasionally, like, it's whatever. We want them to wear a Moeller t-shirt. With all the social media, you can watch all the teams that they're always putting video up of their in the weight room of their practices. And, I want them to wear a Moeller t-shirt and be like, hey, did you see this team work out? Did you see them in the weight room? We have a player, let's say we had a guy at Louisville a few years ago. I said, did you see Nick in the weightlifting video? Yeah, coach. I said, did you see they all had the same shoes, same socks, same shorts, same shirt? Yeah. I said, so, well, you want to go play college baseball? Yes. Well, then you need to wear a Moeller shirt. I've only given you 5 over the last, 2 years. If you need a bigger one, you can buy one, but you got to wear a Moeller shirt. So you got some that kind of will just fight you on little things like that. And the guys, I think the older guys now come in and they're like, coach, are we wearing certain shirt colors on certain days? I said, it's whatever you want. So we'll, walk out there now and they'll be Monday, they're wearing a blue shirt, and Wednesday, everybody's got a gold shirt, and Friday, they're all wearing a gray shirt or whatever. But the kids all put that together, and they'll get on other guys. Like, why are you wearing gold? Today's, Monday, we wear blue. So that's kind of a culture piece that's come on.
Sure, that's cool.
And it doesn't have to be the same one where we don't have that kind of money to get, 60 guys who are working out in the off season, all the same shirt for 3 different days, but getting them to understand with as many guys that can go play college baseball, like, need to do that piece. So it's a small thing. When we start working out in January, we add a Saturday morning hitting session, and the varsity always goes at 8 a.m. and stretching is at 7:45. And I tell them, look, it's Saturday morning. Typically, I want you here 15 minutes early so we know we got everybody. But Saturday mornings, you're probably at the basketball game the night before. I need you here at 7:44 for stretching at 7:45. And if that clock turns 7:45 and they all jump into the cages to stretch, anybody who comes up the steps has to vacuum for 15 minutes. The facility gets dirty with everybody that's up there. So they're on 15 minutes of vacuuming. So they're going to help make the place pretty.
Great. Sure.
They're like, I was only 30 seconds late. Should I vacuum 30 seconds? Nope. 15 minutes. So we'll do that a couple times. And if the guy starts getting a little habitual, then we have to change that consequence. But they figure it out pretty quick. And I tell them, like, everybody's going to miss an alarm somewhere. Everybody's going to wake up and their car was iced over and it took you longer. I said, but you got 15 minutes of vacuuming now. You let your teammates down, and now you need to fix it. So next Saturday, you need to get up 20 minutes earlier, check your car, get it de-iced before you come in. Set 4 alarms, all of those parts. So usually happens, to a couple guys. The rest of them learn from it. And like I said, the facility gets a little bit cleaner. No
doubt. I really like that. That's a good way to do it a little bit differently. And yeah. I think that, we get a little bit, I don't want to say closed-minded whenever we just make them run. So I like the open thought of making them vacuum the locker room. That's really good. Anything that we can do to get their behavior to change. Some guys, like you make a cross-country guy go run, and it's like, okay, that's probably not going to do it. Right. But you give him a vacuum and say, hey, go vacuum for 15 minutes. That's a pretty good.
Yeah, I like and I'm also helping them out because some of them I have to teach them how to turn on the vacuum. So it's a life skill that's going to serve them well in the future.
See, I would have been the kid that if I was late, I would have just brought a Roomba.
There you go. Some of them are like, where do I plug this in at? Where's the power? So you need to help mom and dad out at home a little bit more.
Sure. No, for sure. Well, I've got 2 quick hitters before we go. And Tim, I can't tell you how much I've enjoyed this conversation. It's been really, really good. But I do want to get to know, your mind a little bit better. So, what is a resource, advice, or just something that's made you a better coach that you would like to share with anyone listening?
Oh, I love the clinics. I have not missed the national clinic. Went a couple times when I was assistant, and I did not go my first year. I was the head coach, but the last 14 that they've had them. I've been at every single one of them. I would not miss that. I've been to the state clinic like 27 years in a row. Ohio usually has about 1,000 people to its state clinic each year. It's like one of the largest, I think, besides Texas. So just the amount of things I've picked up from those clinicians, and then just all the people talking at night is incredible. And then, being an ABCA member, and now they're, giving you all the videos and all that access. It's incredible. The amount of hours I have passed on the treadmill watching ABCA clinics has made that time go much better, much faster. So just the knowledge from there. Really during COVID, I dove into all the Eugene Bleecker and the farm system is where we're doing a lot of our hitting stuff from now. Those guys, what they're putting out, what they're making, has been really great for our kids.
Well, very cool. And then I've got, one more for you. What is something that you, or maybe even the most recent thing, or the thing that comes to mind that you've changed your mind about, and why did you change your mind about that thing?
Oh, that's a tough one. I saw you had that on the list. I was like, I got to think about that one. And, I try and keep an open mind. The coaches come with stuff, trying to think of something, probably like, we won't say that I bent over the last 4 or 5 years, but when all the, I don't want to call it a launch angle swing, because I've never believed in that, because we've had hit tracks since 2014. Mm-hmm. But I do think that when the kids, high school boys, get stronger, that freshman, sophomore year, and they really develop physically and get stronger, and they go in there with a hit tracks or Rapsodo hitting, and they can just turn on a baseball that's been underhand flipped to them, to see that if you're not careful with that, you got to constantly communicate with them. So I can't say that I bent and said that's how we're gonna hit, but that was such the rage and how every kid thought he had to hit, that it was really tough fighting through that. And I think now we're kind of over that hump, and I think my hitters now all understand that we do have to hit line drives. That's got to be the middle, and then that will produce hard ground balls, and that will produce our doubles in the gap and our home runs, instead of starting at the home run type angle, and then our miss hits will be doubles.
No doubt.
So it's been good. Tried to work with them. And like I said, I have a long fuse. And so, but trying to get them to understand you can't stay in the lineup if you got in Ohio and we're playing and it's 39 degrees or 42, like it's not flying. So you can't be hitting that many balls up in the air. You're not strong enough yet. So I don't think that answered your question.
No, I think that's a very worthy discussion. You've got, see, what I see with when you have these different, revolutions or data or thoughts, sometimes we leave out data can be very biased as well. Mm-hmm. And I think that, if you're, I use DBU as an example because Hefner's awesome. Yep. And they play in a hitter's park and it blows out a lot. And it's like, okay, like that's like, he's developed a system and a way, guys that he recruits that can pull the ball in the air and hit balls out. And then here in Oklahoma, we have that sometimes too. And then we've got, like you said, the opposite of where it's blowing straight in. And it's, mm-hmm. We played a game a couple of weeks ago that was 40 miles an hour and humidity. And literally we had a center fielder playing in front of our logo on turf. And it was literally like 180 feet away and nobody could hit it over his head. And so it's like, okay, we've got to be able to adjust to this. Right. Otherwise we're not going to be able to win games, and you're not going to be able to do that half the time. So you've got to be adjustable. And, we talk about adjusting to pitches, but also adjusting to conditions and as well. So with any revolution, it's always somewhere in the middle. You've got someone who has a very original thought with good intentions. And then you've got, people who take it to the extreme on that thought. And then you've got the other side who's fighting for it to be the complete opposite of the extreme of what that thought is. And then you've got most people who are somewhere in the middle trying to figure out what actually is going to work best, which I think you and I are both trying to figure that stuff out too. And then you see the stuff on social media, which the kids all read, but that's what we're here for. And, that's why that's why we do what we do. But Tim, I appreciate you, man, and I appreciate you. The last 30 minutes we haven't been able to see each other because the video went down on whatever we're doing. But you've been an awesome guest, and I want to give you the opportunity to leave the guest with whatever you'd like to. So I'm going to mute myself, and then we'll end this thing. But is there anything else that you'd like to tell our listeners before you go? We're all in it, I believe, because we love the game and we want to help, for me, help out high school players to reach their highest potential and whatever level you're at, just to keep, stay true and remember what your purpose is of helping those kids out. Putting them first makes it all easier and makes the whole thing worthwhile as you see them go. And like I said, for me, seeing them from when they enter as freshmen, from all over the city of Cincinnati to when they graduate, it's just a great feeling, and like to feel that I've played a small part in that. And if anybody wants to reach out, I'm on Twitter. It seems like a little bit less and less, but at Tim Held is my personal, and then at Big Mo Baseball on Twitter and Instagram. And then you can always email me at theld@moeller.org, THELD@MOELLER.org. Thank you for listening to Ahead of the Curve. If you enjoyed the show, please consider leaving us a rating or review wherever you are listening. I also wanted to remind you that you can find the video portion at the AOTC channel on stickandball.tv. Have a great week.